Today we're taking a look at the Natural Disasters DLC for City Skylines. The town that you're seeing in the background was built up in my Season 11 Let's Play. If you want to check out how it all came together, give that a look. No mods, no cheats, no DLC was used in the creation of the city until we got to monuments, rolled everything back, and I introduced mass transit DLC in the last episode. Today it's about natural disasters. So first thing, when we load up the game, we're presented with an option if we want random disaster frequency on or off, basically. And if we turn it on, there's 10 levels that you can basically set it to. The bottom half is very infrequent, but the top end is definitely ridiculous and extreme. So either way, we're not going to play with random disasters on. We're actually going to just kind of take a look at the mechanics. We'll drop them all in manually so you can see what those are like. We can also use one or two of them as tools, which I'll show you a little bit later on in the episode. Gotta love that load time on the Series X. That is real load time that is not sped up at all. So just kind of give you an understanding there. Much faster to jump in and out of cities. But this is the only one I can load because a lot of them have DLC. So what exactly is Natural Disasters all about? Well, if you're like me and you played SimCity way back in the day, I would build cities up to then drop the alien attack on them and watch the flying saucers come and break everything. That's pretty much what I did with the game. And this kind of recaptures that spirit. If you're newer to city builders and don't know what I'm talking about, we'll show you in a moment. But essentially, there's a couple disasters that can happen in your city. Things like tsunamis, tornadoes, earthquakes. And then you have a new set of city service buildings that we can use to detect some of those things so we get an early warning. There are shelters that we can send the Sims to protect them in these times. And there's also buildings that help kind of rebuild things after the disasters hit. Of course, on top of that, there's new unique buildings, a new monument. We'll talk about all those mechanics in today's episode. So let's dive right in and talk about the disasters themselves. We've got a new tab over here for disasters. We'll talk evacuation. We'll talk about disaster notifications. We'll talk about all this stuff. But for right now, let's take a look at what all these disasters are. So a fire. Now, if we select this and then you go to your radial wheel, or there's an option in the bottom left of the UI on PC, you can actually, see how bad this fire actually is. We'll set a 10 scale. And we'll start it at this house right here. And the other thing now, there's a game option within the actual game. Let me start this fire and let's see how that does. Now, keep in mind, we've had some pretty good luck, or I shouldn't say that. If you followed my Season 11 Let's Play, we had really good luck with, fires being put out very quickly. In this case, though, fire spreads now. So if this happens to get to the next house, this one happens to get to the next house, or if this one happens to get to the next house, or this one, I guess, one of those should spread, right? The other fire that you see over here is a forest fire specifically. So this will ignite a large area of trees, and again, fire can spread now. So we don't really have any way to protect against that in this city. So that's just gonna go up. You'll get notifications now when disasters are happening, and it will kind of steal the camera focus and draw your attention over to that event. Once it is detected, you'll notice that without those early warning systems, we're not finding about that forest fire until a long while after it started. Here's one of the best things, though. The next option here is called collapse. So we have things like cemeteries. Do we still have a dump on our map? I don't believe that we do. I think we switched all over to incinerators, right? So incinerators, dumps, you can't, dumps and cemeteries, you can't move them when they're full. You have to empty them to another building to then move them or demolish them. What's nice about the collapse option is that you can actually collapse a building. I know this is kind of mean what we're doing here, but you can collapse a building, and then that you can demo, and we can go back into healthcare and put down a new cemetery. So if you have natural disasters DLC, that's one of the ways that we can use a disaster as a tool, and it doesn't, in that case, have a lot of cost, because replacing a cemetery or a dump is really not that expensive, but it's one of my favorite things about having natural disasters installed. It's a really cheeky little cheat that you can do. This is not going well, but that's exactly what I was expecting, causing a massive disaster without the response services in place. So we'll just let this go in the background, see how bad it gets. I know somebody's been dying to see something like this. Maybe we can help kind of fan the flames out with a meteor. So let's drop that one in there. We'll leave it on 3 times speed so that it gets here a little bit sooner. We'll also try and do, this is ocean out this way, right? So maybe if we do a tsunami, we'll have that kind of roll in. Let's do, this one is the earthquake. Yeah. Let's put an earthquake kind of right in the center of our town. Again, a 10 scale. We're going to show you what all the big disasters look like. And tornado wise, maybe we can help out here too and blow some of the fire out with wind. Thunderstorms are another thing that you will see. And these look really impressive at night. I'm not sure what this will look like during the day, but we'll kind of call one over our downtown area. And then this is something that I actually used early on. I didn't realize the collapse was the handier version of it. But what you could do is also sinkhole a building like the dump or the cemetery. 3 times speed? I don't know. Well, the game's going to run a little slower now. If you do this on the standard build of the console, the game will absolutely crawl. I'm kind of interested to see how the Series X handles all this happening at the same time. So that is a 10 scale meteor. That itself actually has a ring of fire with it. So this should be really unfortunate. We'll reload the save after. You'll notice that roads can now be demolished. All these buildings are demolished. They've either, burned down, or these ones have just been destroyed by the impact of the meteor in this case. Fire is slowly spreading out from there. Where was that cemetery that I caused a sinkhole on? It was over here. Every time a disaster hits, when it changes focus and pulls it in, I think maybe I mentioned this already, it slows the game down to 1 time speed. So I'll try and remember to turn those all back on. I guess I could just fix it in the edit. There's our earthquake. I think it kind of has to cue some of these things up. Camera is shaking pretty good. And it will kind of put the epicenter wherever the disaster was called. So that's kind of interesting. We had a road there. We had a road through here. Our power plant looks like it's affected. Got a couple pop-ups happening on the map. It's not too bad just yet. So what is, it's the tornadoes coming in to clean up after the earthquake. Yeah, so we've definitely got just a couple problems in our city. The power plant is on fire. 3 times speed. I think they're going to get there to put that out. I don't think that's our issue yet. Power should be restored pretty soon. You would hope. What tornado? Yeah, we know about the tornado. We know all about the tornado. 3 times speed. That's right. Every time it changes that focus, now we have the lightning coming in. These are end times, apparently. I did call those on kind of quickly on one another. Okay, good. I'm glad this finally happened. So we have a sinkhole instead of a cemetery now. Again, this is what I previously did. The collapse option is just one less step. Because after you do this, I guess it's technically the same number of steps. This one costs you money. You have to smooth the terrain out for, in this case, about $6,000. And now we can drop that back in. Of course, we lost our road in the process too. So collapse is much more focused, and it collapses that one building. Just a better option. sinkhole. Oh, not the Eden Project. Oh, then there's no possible way that a fire truck can get to that. There's literally no way, because this road is a one-way road that is completely cut off. They don't have a way to cut across the... I don't think they have a way to cut across that, right? They don't. No, so that's just going to go. Not a good look for our city. Did we do all the disasters? I believe that we did. Okay. So while all that's happening, and while our city's totally a mess, let's talk about some of the ways that we could have found out about those things a little bit sooner. So if we go over to our emergency services, there's going to be a lot of different options here that we didn't have before. First one's underneath, well, I guess I shouldn't say first one, depends on where you go. But the first one I want to talk about is the Fire Helicopter Depot and the Fire Watch Tower. So Fire Watch Towers have this area of coverage. It's pretty decent, but depending on, where it is, it'll actually see what it can see. So you'll notice, like, if we put this, here in this pit of the meteor, it may actually not have the best visibility, like down hills. That's actually pretty good. That one didn't affect it too bad. But if there's a big hill that you're on top of and you can't see the other side of the valley, it will prevent it even if it's within this circle. So basically this is what it can see for trees, and it will report that early on to the rest of the city to potentially put out forest fires before they spread too far. So ideally you want to have, a couple of these spread out around so that your trees surrounding your city are relatively well covered. In my case, I tend to go a little bit overboard. I have bad luck with fires. Part of that is always playing with natural disasters and not turning off fire spread. Again, that's an option in the game settings. So you can go to options, gameplay, and disable fire spreading. That's also where you can change after the fact the random disaster frequency. You can do that when you first load your city, but for whatever reason, it doesn't show you the other options for disabling things like fire spread. It can't show you all the options at the loading screen. Up next is the Fire Helicopter Depots. If fire's found in your city, it'll send out helicopters. Interesting little caveat though, they have to go pick up water in the river first. So don't put it too far inland. Like if I put it, in the center of my city and there's a fire right next door, it has to fly all the way to the water to fly all the way back. So ideally you want these relatively close to water so that they don't have to go too far out of their way to pick up those, fill up those buckets that they're going to drop on the destination. Now, it's not just the fire department that get helicopters. Police get helicopters as well. They can send these out to basically patrol the city, lowers the crime rate, and at the end of the day, they come back to the depot. So the good thing about these helicopter services is there's one more underneath healthcare is the medical helicopter depot. The nice thing about these, they can service areas that otherwise couldn't get service, or at least not easily. If you have isolated road networks, you could have this kind of between two zones. Where's a good example of that? To get from the industry, say, to the residential over there, you have to come out to the highway. You have to go way around. But if we had like a fire helicopter depot, police, healthcare, whatever it is, it could just as easily send a helicopter ambulance, if you will, air quotes on that. Send that helicopter service over here or over there. It doesn't have to worry about roads. It just takes a direct route. So they are really nice mechanics that you should definitely consider having at least one of each, I think, in your city. I'm especially a fan of the fire helicopter depots because things tend to be very problematic for me. We're losing population. I don't know why. I don't know why you wouldn't want to live here. But let's keep talking about some of those things that can save us or at least alert us to disasters before they actually happen. Here's our tsunami. Perfect timing. That is a very, very, very big wall of water. Let's throw on 3 times speed and see what happens there. So how do we find out about this stuff before it's a problem? Well, if we go back over here, there's a natural disasters specific tab. So I'm going to talk about these a little bit out of order. So let's head over here first to the earthquake sensor. This will actually sense that seismic activity in the ground. and it will tell you before earthquakes or sinkholes happen that they're about to happen. So you could potentially evacuate people. More on that in a few minutes. But the earthquake sensor is real simple, real small, and it has only a $43 a week upkeep. So you can kind of drop it here, let's say, and like that has a massive area coverage. You know, two little structures like that, and you're done. Like that covers, you know, all of my city right there. Maybe if I'd placed them a little more carefully, we would have known better about, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. The whole city's about to get washed away. So don't worry, we'll reload the save. Earthquake sensors, anyway, they do a really good job at, you know, telling you about those things ahead of time. Again, you can evacuate before any of these disasters actually hit your city. If you get early warning, you can minimize some of the damage, certainly to the population, which is one of the toughest parts. Now, the other thing that's kind of cool about the earthquake sensors, see how we have power lines going from here to here? If you want something that's a little easier to hide, you can actually bridge the gap in power. Wrong way. You can actually bridge the gap in power using that earthquake sensor. So power will spread from building to building, those blue bubbles. Eventually, though, if you have enough space, you have to connect them with something like a power line. This does the exact same thing and can be hidden really well. So, you know, if you want to extend power source out into your, you know, out to another neighborhood, there's no reason that you have to see it. Very easy to hide that, and it's a really cool little trick that you can do with the earthquake sensor. I guess technically other park and prop objects work as well, but this one's just really effective. It's not that expensive and it's cheap on the upkeep. Up next is the tsunami warning buoy, and that sure would have been helpful yesterday. So let's throw one of those out in the water where we definitely know there is water, because that I think is going to be rocks when this all settles down. Maybe not. That might be back to the ocean level. We've got some wet buildings. Yeah. Okay. There we go. The water's still very much a part of our city. Let's go walk around on foot for a minute. Let's see how bad this is. That's pretty bad. It's not great. I mean, did it? Okay. If you're at just the right height, you can't really see the water. That's interesting. Well, how is this possible? Let's try that again. Let's camera walk. Let's go down here. Oh, I'm getting pushed out. I'm getting sent away with the current. This is fine. So you can swim up, but then once you do, you can't go back down. It's really weird. Anyways, not good news for our city. Okay. So now we'll know about tsunamis a little bit earlier. Weather radar. Building must be placed by roadside. Okay. Weather radar. We got plenty of roadside over here that's not being used. This will detect your thunderstorms and tornadoes ahead of time. Again, something that would have been useful before we drop all that stuff in the city. The deep space radar, as you can probably guess, is going to warn us about meteors that are coming. It will also calculate the approximate area of the impact. But, you know, it zooms the camera over there. It doesn't give you that much warning. Basically, just, you know, you can evacuate individual areas, or you can evacuate your entire city. Speaking of, let's talk about that for a moment. So you have a couple different shelters that you can do. One of these bad things is about to happen. You found out about it early because of those early warning systems. Now you want to get some or all of your citizens out to shelter. So let's say, you know, what do we have hit over here? Was this just the thunderstorm? Did the tornado come through here? I don't even remember what this was. But let's say we got a warning that something was about to happen over here. We could have a shelter over here. Maybe a shelter or two. I don't know. That seems excessive for the people that work over here. I don't know. I balance them out however you see fit. These hold 1,000 each. We only got 36,000 people in the city, so we'll do the larger shelters over where people live. After a disaster, citizens who've lost their homes can live in the shelter until they find new housing. One thing to keep in mind is you can send people to shelters whenever you want. They're not paying taxes when you do, though. So get them back to their houses when you can, as soon as you can, ideally. Otherwise, you could definitely have an economic impact on your city. Now, these shelters, the large emergency shelters, same thing, just a little bit bigger. And this one has a 10,000 capacity. So let's find a little spot for this. I don't even know if we can park it on this, like whatever. There we go. So it has a little road entry to get in and out of there. I wonder if the people that don't have a way to, don't have any place to live right now because their homes are demolished, will live there temporarily. Technically they should, until that housing gets built back up. Of course, we have to go and demolish all these buildings and clean stuff up before they can get rebuilt. Okay, so we've got a shelter. We've got a disaster that we know is coming thanks to our early warning systems, but we've also got to warn our citizens about it. So the radio mast towers will let us do that. When we send out an evacuation signal, wherever there's coverage, they find out about those problems. So let's do this. Let's take a look at the size difference, right? So if I go to the middle of this crater from the meteor strike, you can see how big the area of effect is for the smaller radio tower. The larger one, I'm pretty sure it takes up a decent area, right? Put it in the crater. Yeah, right there. And that should cover our entire city. So pretty decent coverage. Can't complain about that. You know, is it a little, it technically misses the industrial area. Don't worry about that. I guess we can put one over there to not completely neglect them. All right, so we've got a way to find out about the problems, a way to warn people about the problems. Now we've got to get people there. So if we go and inspect on one of the shelters, you'll see a couple extra options here. One to draw escape routes, one to delete escape routes, and one to evacuate citizens to this shelter. Important distinction there. This, not all, when you do it from inspecting on a shelter. So if we want to get people here, effectively what we can do is draw a little bus route. So people will travel here, but you can make it easier for them to get here, essentially by building a little route. So like we could come down here. Our options are a little limited because most of our roads are already destroyed, but let's just say, for example, we wanted to pick up everybody in this area. You know, you could have a route, make some stops, and pick people up. And the building itself has, the large one has more buses. It has 10 buses. What do we see? Let's see what they have over here. This has a bus count of 5, which doesn't scale well because you have 5 buses for 1,000. You have 10 buses for 10,000. You'll notice also as we inspect on these, you need routes. You need deliveries to come and stock up on stuff. Where is that? It's over here. Sorry, there's a lot of icons on the screen. Sorry about that. Water, food, power. Power, pretty straightforward. Water and food come in on trucks. So you just need to make sure there are routes to get to your emergency shelter. If you have a couple disasters hitting your city, make sure you're repairing your roads to get to and from the shelters first and foremost. Otherwise, they can get completely cut off from supplies, which is no good. It just got a delivery. Truck just came in, delivered some food, and you notice that popped up there. If you want to remove an escape route, did I just automatically delete it? I did, because it's a 1-button press to get rid of it. So let's redraw this. We'll go all the way around the neighborhood. We can't go there, so we'll go this way. Okay, we put the escape route back. Now, if we select in the shelter, again, we can evacuate just to this shelter. So this will send out a warning, basically, if you're within range of this, and certainly on the bus route, well, then hop on a bus and get out of there because something bad is going to happen. What the bad thing is right now is they're not paying taxes. Again, keep that in mind. When you evacuate to shelters, they are not paying taxes. So big hit on your city's income. Now we've got to come up with a way to undo some of the damage that has happened. So there's a couple buildings that we need to talk about for a moment here. The disaster response unit. Let's drop that one in first. This sends out helicopters and trucks to clear rubble and rescue survivors. It can also rebuild buildings. So, and this is going to save us a ton of money. So let's find a spot for this somewhere. It's a big building. Let's just drop it in there. That deleted a lot of stuff. That's okay. This is not where it's going. We're not sticking with the save, so don't worry about that. So you'll notice that those helicopters start to get sent out. I would love for it to specifically hit. Oh yes, no, I don't care about these buildings. Please come over here. It's super cool because essentially it lets you rebuild it. So if we bulldoze this is where the Eden Project was. We're gonna have to pay for another copy of the Eden Project, which is $850,000. I believe it's a little bit cheaper if they come on over here. Come over here, check the building. Okay, so you'll see here, the buildings have been searched for survivors. Disaster response unit has been there. We can click on it, and we can't do a whole lot with these buildings, right? Zone buildings aren't gonna do anything special for us. They look for survivors, great. It'll actually let us rebuild other buildings. Oh, here. Like once it searches through these parks and these assets that we pop down specifically, it should let us rebuild. There's just so much stuff that it has to search through. I'll keep an eye out and see if it's something that like they don't even know where to go. There's like look at all the things they have to search. So we can interact with those buildings. But ultimately, zone buildings, all we can really do is delete them. Special buildings, unique buildings that we pop in, you can rebuild those once they get searched. Keep an eye on that. Maybe we'll come back to that. Next up, underneath water, we've got a couple new things happening here. So let's talk about these. First is a pumping service. So we had that tsunami. We've got a flood. Pumping service has a fleet of vacuum trucks that are sent out when there are flooded buildings. So it'll vacuum it up. It then needs a place to collect it, the pumping service depot. So let's, I mean, it really doesn't matter where. I was gonna drop it there, but there's no road there anymore. So there is our pumping service. It will send trucks out. If it could. I think I just dropped it on a broken road. Let's fix that for a moment. If we go over to our roads, and let's see, I am on a different road type. I don't think it matters. Let's do this. We have a repair option down here. There we go. It doesn't matter what road I have selected. I have a 2-lane road. I'm repairing a 4-lane road. That's fine. Traffic's all backed up. You can come in here and just repair. You can see it's 160 cost. It's cheaper than rebuilding. And it's obviously a lot easier than rebuilding if you have curvy networks or anything like that. You can see some of the debris spills out in the street. It looks a little bit like a broken road, but not quite. So you can come in here, repair your roads. You can repair things like power stations. This doesn't even have power coming out to it. That's great. Let's do that for now. Just in case we want to send out that warning signal. So anyways, back to water. Over here on the end, we hooked up a pumping service, but we need a tank reservoir. We need somewhere to put the excess water like back into the system. So basically, if we're intaking more water than we need, it's going to store the excess. And that can be used, you know, if there's ever reduction in production. So can we get this? Where can we get this? It's gonna let me put it there, right? Here's the catch with these two buildings though. These buildings, the pumping station and the tank reservoir, need to be plugged in directly into the water supply. So you need, it's not enough to just cover them like we do with regular buildings. They need to be connected directly, just like the pumping and sewage stations. So the water pumping service, again, will send out the trucks. The excess water can get stored in the tank reservoirs, or You can also do what's called a fresh water outlet. This one you can rotate on console with a D-pad. And if we drop this right here, and again, connect this in with water pipes directly. If we're producing excess water, and I didn't notice where we were at there. We're producing a little excess water. So 3 times speed, hopefully that will come on if we're powered here. There we go. So any excess water, you can create a river or a water flow, or take your excess water and add it out here to push that sewage out even further and faster and speed up your water flow. So you can do some pretty cool things with it. Today we're using it just to flood an area effectively, right? This is where our roundabout was. The trees all survived. Nature finds a way. So where's this going to go? This is going to go down the earthquake, little valley of the earthquake, and it might overflow here at the end. That water will eventually run off and kind of soak into the ground. So it may not be enough depending on how much you're producing to flood an area. It may very well. So you can use this to do some man-made lakes and stuff like that. If you interact with the building, you can also turn this on or off manually. Now the excess goes into the tank reservoirs, which again, if you go down in production, can be used. But if you don't have that, you don't really, I don't know what happens to the extra water. Just keep sucking it in. It just goes somewhere. Oh, perfect. Here we go. So some of the buildings, or at least this one on the university, now has this marker on it, which means that it has been searched. You'll notice it is orange. It's different from the ones like this that we just have to destroy. This one, if we interact with it, we have the option to rebuild. And I should have paid attention to how much that cost us, but I'm pretty sure it's cheaper. Do we have another? We do have another icon like that. So let's pause the game. We're at 779562. We'll rebuild. 778562. So it was $1,000. If we have any more, they're kind of tough to pick out with all the noise on the screen, but I'm finding them. 778562. 762. So those do have variable cost. I think that they've got to be cheaper than rebuilding the building from scratch. So disaster response unit, tank service, pumping service, tank reservoir, helicopter depots. You know what we didn't talk about is new policies. So there's a couple new ones. Let's just dive through those real quick. So probably one of the most important ones is lightning rods. You'll find it under the city planning tab. Request that the tallest buildings install lightning rods in their roofs, lower the likelihood of them catching fire during a thunderstorm. It's a pretty cheap cost. You can do it on a per district basis. So if you have really tall buildings only in one part of your town, you only have to, do that there. I mean, again, the policy itself requests the tallest buildings to install lightning rods. So it may not apply to everything anyways, but, turn that one on. If you are playing with random disasters, you don't want things burning down all the time from lightning strikes, definitely turn that policy on. Fast recovery is one specifically for the emergency response unit. This will allow you to basically not bother checking for survivors, but just let you rebuild faster. So it speeds up the process of allowing you to rebuild an area. If you've got a lot of buildings that you can rebuild that you don't have to demo, makes sense, I guess. But there's pretty limited use case for that one. Speaking of limited use cases, the no rebuilding policy forbid rebuilding on lots with destroyed buildings. Lots have to be manually bulldozed to allow rebuilding. So if you're trying to create this dystopian city of the future that's all, post-apocalyptic and ruined, that's a fantastic policy for you. Definitely check that one out. But policy-wise, I think, the lightning rods is by far the most important one. I think there's one thing that we did not talk about. When disasters happen, you kind of have to ring the alarm. You'll get notified. And if you heard or slightly missed the notification, you can come to this tab. So where we called the disasters, there's the notifications. It'll actually tell you if something's happening. If you don't have any early warning system, it'll tell you once it happens. If you do have an early warning system, it'll also tell you ahead of time again. So if we want to evacuate our entire city, we have that option right there. If we want to send everybody back home, we can do that. And if we want, again, to evacuate just a particular part of our town, we can interact with that shelter and hit the evacuation button on the right side there. And again, once that's running, you then have the option of turning it off. For whatever reason, that is not animating. That's interesting. Anyways, you'll notice as soon as you do that, the buses come out, people in and out, running in and out. Look at all the people that were in there. Holy cow, I think we had that. Do we have that full of people? We must have. I like that it's showing one person leaving at a time, yet there's literally 10,000 people that just poured out of my shelter in my city. That's crazy. All right, so I reloaded my save and I wanted to drop just a couple things in. Let me show you what I did here. I extended this out, flattened it out a little bit. Not entirely excited with this cliff face, but we're going to be working on this area quite a bit at some point with some terraforming. There's a massive kind of hole in the ground here where all my water structures are underneath, and this sudden dip creates this really weird water flow here. But anyways, on this hilltop here, I flattened this out a bit, made just a simple little L-shaped road, and I dropped in police, fire, and medical helicopters. Now, one thing that's worth pointing out is if your city is like me, or is like mine, I should say, if your city's like me, if you have a medical monument, this has a helipad that will go pick people up, and this will probably meet the needs for your city. You may not need a med helicopter, but if you're earlier in your city's growth and you don't have good healthcare coverage everywhere, this can help extend that quite a bit. Again, having this right next to the water means that they can basically take off, immediately fill up, and then get the heck out of there. I thought that was a sunken ship for a minute in the river that I didn't notice until now, but no, that's just a sewage pipe that's a little higher up than the others. Okay, so one thing I realized I was going to forget to talk about today is the new unique buildings. These have some different requirements, like having a meteor hit your city, or having a disaster hit, or having a disaster hit with no damage, no loss in life. And you can do that very easy by, having a meteor fall in the corner of your map. So some of them are really easy to unlock. Others are not so easy. In fact, I don't think I have the level 5 Sphinx of Scenarios. Win any 3 scenarios. I haven't done that yet. And then the last one here is to win specifically the Floodland scenario. So win 5 scenarios, and it will walk you through kind of which ones specifically you have to beat. Once you've done all of those, then you can unlock the Doomsday Vault Monument. And this one's a huge underground facility that helps shelter citizens. Doesn't say how many. I think we actually have to construct it to see. But it's a lot larger, I guess, than the 10,000. So it must support an awful lot of people. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. But if we wanted to kind of throw these things in there, we could do that. Maybe I'll find better spots for these, rather than just drop them in, and we can have some actual memorials. But, there are some, again, the Meteorite Park, the Disaster Memorial, the Helicopter Park. I think you have to construct all 3 of the helicopter depots to unlock that one. The Pyramid of Safety, again, is have a disaster hit the city with no casualties. Simple to kind of cheat that one out. And then the Sphinx of Scenarios and the Sparkly Unicorn Rainbow Park, I just don't have unlocked. Maybe someday. People have asked me to do the scenarios. Maybe we'll struggle bust them on a live stream. I think I might have tried to do that once and didn't get through any. So I don't know. We'll see if that ever gets done. That one may be unfinished forever on my build. That one could work all right there. I think we'll want to fill in the sides a bit here. If it would let me do it just right and fill this in, that would be sweet. But it has that little bit of a line there. Look at it from the right angle, though. It kind of look too bad. But I think that's a nice little look. It's almost like a little United Nations area there with all the different flags, even though there's a lot of repeats, unfortunately. But hopefully you found today interesting, useful, gave you an idea of what's in natural disasters. I want to do this, because I know a lot of people have, Game Pass versions, PS Plus, Epic Game Store. You got a free copy of the base game, and maybe you want to add some DLC. And I want to break it out and kind of help you understand what each one is all about. They all have some really cool, useful features. So far between mass transit and natural disasters, I'm pretty sure mass transit is winning. Let me know in the comments down below who's in the lead. What are you waiting to see next? Again, Town of Plainville was built up in season 11 of the Let's Play. Just wrapped up at the end of December. It didn't technically wrap up. I put it on hold to start focusing on the DLC. If you're new here, subscribe for more. Check back all kinds of cities videos, other content too, live streams, all sorts of stuff. Hit the bell to get notifications for updates in this and other series. If you enjoyed today's video, likes, comments, and shares all help so much, and they're so greatly appreciated. I'm pretty sure the next DLC is going to be Green Cities. In fact, I'm going to install it right now and make absolutely sure that the next DLC is going to be Green Cities. So tune back in for that. We'll kind of mix and match some of the different DLCs, jump back and forth. I don't want to stick to a strict upload schedule for these because they are more involved than the Let's Plays. I do a little bit of pre-work, make sure I talk about everything. Hopefully I didn't forget anything today. If I did, comments down below. Let me know. Always like to hear from you down there. If you'd like to support the channel, links to that and lots of other things in the description down below. Until the next one, though, this is Move the Mouse, signing off.